तीरावनचारी जमुना तीरावनचारी जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जना वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजन जमुना तीरावनचारी जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जयो राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे राम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जायम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमती डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की। जायम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमती डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की, अनंत ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की। ऑल ग्लोरीज टू assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपः कुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। Hare Krishna. This morning we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4th, entitled The Creation of Fourth Order, Chapter 16th, Praise of King Prithu by the Professional Reciters, Text 7. Titikshati akramamam vainya उपरि आक्रमताम् अपि भूतानां करुणा शश्वत अर्थनां क्षिति वृत्तिमान् तितिक्षति अक्रमं वैन्या तितिक्षति अक्रमं वैन्या उपरि आक्रमतामपि भूतानां करुणा शाश्वत आर्तानां क्षितिवृत्तिमान् तितिक्षति आक्रमं वैन्या उपरि आक्रमतामपि भूतानां करुणा शाश्वत आर्तानां क्षितिवृत्तिमान् तितिक्षति आक्रमं वैन्या उपरि आक्रमतामपि भूतानां करुणा शाश्वत आर्तानां क्षितिवृत्तिमान्। Please recite. तितिक्षति अक्रमं उपरि आक्रमतामपि आर्तान् क्षितिवृत्तिमान् तितिक्षति अक्रमं वैन्या upari akramataamapi bhutanam karuna sasad arthanam kithivrittimam vidikshati akramam upari akramataamapi bhutanam karunah sasvad arthanam kshiti-vrittimam. Anybody from Vaishnavis? We'll see word to word meaning. Titikshati, tolerates. Akramam, offense. Vanya, the son of King Vena. Upari, on his head. Akramatam, of those who are trampling. Api, also. Bhutanam, to all living entities. Karuna, very kind-hearted. Sashvat, always. Arthanam, to the aggrieved. Kshiti-vrittiman, accepting the profession of the earth. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all the citizens. Even though a poor man may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. Please recite the translation in response. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens. Even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as the earth itself. Purport. King Prithu is herein compared to the earth planet as far as his tolerance is concerned. Although the earth is always trampled upon by men and animals, it still gives food to them by providing grains, fruits and vegetables. As an ideal king, Maharaj Prithu is compared to the earthly planet. For even though some citizens may violate the rules and regulations of the state, he will still be tolerant and maintain them with fruits and grains. In other words, it is a duty of the king to look after the comforts of the citizens, even at the cost of his own personal convenience. This is not the case, however, in Kali Yuga. For in Kali Yuga, the kings and the heads of the state enjoy life at the cost of taxes exacted from the citizens. Such unfair taxation makes the people dishonest. And the people try to hide their income in so many ways. Eventually, the state will not be able to collect taxes and consequently will not be able to meet its huge military and administrative expenses. Everything will collapse and there will be chaos and disturbances all over the state. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Bhagwan ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Chandra Bhagwan ki, Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Mai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So first of all, I seek blessings from all the assembled devotees, in particular His Grace Anandmay Prabhu, so that I can speak something worthwhile on this topic where there is description about character of King Pruthu. So the citizens of this kingdom have experienced extremities. At one point, they had a king like King Vena, who was born atrocious. From very childhood he was sinful, very adharmi king. Now here they have a king like Pruthu Maharaj, who is exhibiting all the divine qualities of demigods. Vena wanted to become God, artificial means, by telling them directly worship me. Whereas here King Pruthu is exhibiting all the qualities of demigods. In the previous verse we have seen King Pruthu has been compared to sun god. So there are various reasons why king is compared, or king is sometimes equal to various demigods, because he exhibits such qualities. Just like in the presence of sun there is no darkness. Similarly, when in the presence of a very powerful king, there is no irreligious activities going on in the kingdom. And there can be many reasons for such an analogy. Just like sun distributes its light everywhere. Like if there is a house of a thief, the sun will not say, okay, I will not give sunlight to a thief. Sun gives sunlight to everyone. So similarly, a king should give necessities to everyone, irrespective of, even if that person is an irreligious person. Just like, for example, the government imprisons the prisoners who have done mistakes or sinful activities. Now even in the prison, that person is given food. That person may sometimes get deprived of food when he is staying outside, because of which he is stealing. But when he gets into the jail, at least his food is ensured. Of course, I am not talking about the quality of food, but I am talking about the necessities are ensured even when the government imprisons such a person. So similarly, as a king, he should give necessities to all the people. He should never consider that somebody is my enemy, so I will not give him necessities. So here, in this particular verse, there is King Pruthu being described as Shiti Vrittiman. Shiti Vrittiman means one who has accepted the profession of earth. So earth by nature is very tolerant. Like for example, we want to construct our residence. We dig up the earth. So the earth is a body of Bhudevi. Like for example, in our body, if somebody, any pinch comes, we feel the pain. And we try to protect our body by various means. By wearing footwear, or as per the changes of weather, we try to protect our body as much as possible. We are not as much tolerant. But Mother Earth, she tolerates various things. We dug up the earth to make our construction building. We dump all our dirt into the earth. Is it not? Right? We eat food, and whatever the remnants come, we throw that also on earth. We want water. What do? We dug up the earth and extract water out from the earth. So for our personal sense gratification, if I am allowed to use that word, we torture Mother Earth like anything. Sometimes for production of food grain, we put pesticides, insecticides in the earth, and it reacts with earth and sometimes makes the land barren also. So all these atrocities are there on Mother Earth. And apart from the human-made atrocities, there are natural settings. Sometimes on the surface of the earth, there are huge stones. Sometimes for channeling irrigation, we dug up ponds. So many things we do with the earth. Still, earth does not complain. Rather, it patiently tolerates, and not just tolerates, but gives us foods, grains and necessities. Imagine Bhudevi decides that because people are giving atrocities, I will not supply food grains. It will be a big problem for mankind. So Bhudevi tolerates all this. Sometimes it is also compared like a mother. When the small child in the hands of a mother, the small child kicks the mother also. Because the child does not know anything. But still mother nourishes the small baby, irrespective of how many number of offenses committed. The mother will never tell the child that I am counting how many number of offenses you are doing. So that is the nature of mother. So the king should have both the qualities. He should be ready to punish the offenders at the right time, and at the same time he should be ready to tolerate all the offenses also. So an expert king should know when to give punishment and when to tolerate. If we just take out one exclusive quality of a king and apply that all the times the king should be like this, then there will be again atrocities going on. Here it says that the king is tolerant for all the offenses committed against him. If a king says that okay, all the offenses are forgiven, like sometimes, especially a very famous religion practices this. No matter how many offenses you commit, you just come and sit in front of the Lord, pray, and the priest says, go, the Lord has forgiven you. So then what? He will be induced to commit sinful activities once again. And again he will come and say that please forgive my offenses. He will say, forgiven. After some time what happens? He will say that the Lord anyways forgives. Why to go and ask forgiveness also? So he will give up that also. Right? So when it says that king is very, very forgiving and tolerant, means he is forgiving and tolerant for the mistakes committed by the citizens unintentionally or committed against him, not against dharma, not against innocent citizens. You will see that an ideal king is the one who rewards and punishes appropriately. If a citizen has done a very good job, he should reward that citizen. And if a citizen commits sinful activities, he should be punished. So there are various things by which a king is known to be a good king. So Ramayana, especially by the characteristics of Lord Rama, not just Lord Rama, by Bharata and Shatrughan, they explain us what is the role of a king. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, such kings are very, very rare who have such a good character, not just personal character, but intelligence to rule the citizens. We see many times in a short span of 100 years of our life, we see that many kingdoms, states or countries are in financial difficulties. It is not uncommon even now. We know that one or two of the neighboring countries are undergoing financial crisis. Why such financial crisis happen? Because the king will exact taxes unevenly. So when kings extract taxes unevenly, and then there are loopholes. So when there is a loophole, then the citizens will try to hide, their income. Prabhupada writes here, in Kali Yuga, the kings and the heads of state enjoy the life at the cost of taxes exacted from the citizens. Such unfair taxation makes people dishonest, and people try to hide the income in so many ways. So all of you, those who are working and earning money by working in corporates, you all know what all the means by people try to hide their income. And by dealing in cash, many people try to dishonestly manipulate their incomes, and government does not get income from such people. So what they try to do, they try to exact taxes from honest citizens, those who are paying taxes, by which all these things will collapse ultimately. Prabhupada says in the words in the purport, eventually the state will not be able to collect taxes, and consequently they will not be able to meet huge military and administrative expenses. Everything will collapse, and there will be chaos and disturbances all over the state. So we can see that even happening even right now. Countries who are neighboring to India, or even the European countries, they have many of the times have failed in maintaining their economy. Why it happens so? First thing is, the kings are dishonest themselves. So when the king is dishonest, the citizens also feel that I can also be dishonest. No problem. When the king do adharma, like Krishna says, yad yad acharati shreshtas tattat evaitaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tad anuvartate. So if the kings are driven by lust, anger, greed for money, greed for money, so people also think that I can also be greedy. See the king. So like that, when all the people go run around greed, then everything will be a mess. So the king, first of all, in this age are very, very dishonest. They are driven by lust, anger and greed. So what to speak of citizens? And when the kings use the money, governmental money, for personal sense gratification, so that is the time, then the citizens will be unhappy. So a king should manage the state of affairs in such a way that no irreligious activities should go on. In the Vedic times, there are so many examples of how a king used to maintain his administrative work through spies and through ministers. So king also used to maintain spies to make sure that the ministers are not dishonest. For example, somebody is doing malpractices, the king immediately used to come to know, because he had spies. And who is that spy? General people never used to know. And you do some mistake, immediately the punishment of the king used to come, and people used to get surprised how the king knows. The king manages through spies. So I think Chanakya Pandit also says that a king sees through his spies. A Brahmana sees through scriptures, and a king sees through spies. And more than that, a king used to maintain a good reserve of wealth, not in terms of papers, but in terms of gold and in terms of cows. We see in the Mahabharata also, when kings used to go for a war, they used to have reserves as in terms of gold or in terms of cows. We can remember the instance where when Mahabharata's war was impending, the Kauravas wanted to get hold of cows so that the wealth is remained in the city, in the state. Whereas now, because of the paper currency, there is miscalculation. Like ideally, whenever we print a currency of 100 rupee worth, an equal amount of 100 rupee gold worth should be there in the government's reserve. But because of lack of character or greed, more number of papers are printed and less number of reserve is there. So ideally the government, when they promises something on the currency, it means that the equivalent amount of gold or silver is being reserved based on this. But now you go to the government, you collect all the money which is running across the country and go and tell the government so much, this much reserve of wealth, it will not have. So because of this, the currency or the economical system can collapse anytime. So without having a proper understanding of finances, if the government king goes on releasing currency based on artificial greed, so all these things happen. So basically what happens is greed increases. People keep on hoarding money and the government is not ready to bear that consequences. So all these problems paper currencies have, but unfortunately we are living in Kali Yuga and there is no solution. Like sometimes when the government decides to eradicate religion by changing the currencies suddenly, still there is lot of problem because of dishonest means. Still the government is not able to solve the problem. So it's a very precarious situation in Kali Yuga that the kings are not able to maintain the kingdoms properly. So King Prithu is not that kind of a king. King Prithu being a very strong person and at the same time tolerant. So it is very very difficult to be a very proper king. You have to be very strong in terms of executing dharma. At the same time you have to be tolerant also. So this is a very difficult art of managing things. So King Prithu being incarnation of Lord, he by default can act at that capacity of ruling the kingdom. Whereas in general the kings used to get trained under brahmanas for many years before accepting the kingship. So kings were never elected based on votes. In the previous purpose also, Prabhupada is explaining about the democratic kingdoms, how the democratic kingdoms will fail. Because population in general, they do not know what the qualities of king should be. King acts in such a very what do you say, hidden way, Gupta karya, that general people will not understand that this is the characteristics of a king. So they will elect a king based on their demands. And unfortunately democracy is such a place where you have to the manifesto, in a manifesto you have to tell the people that what all sense gratifications I will provide. So people will not know that how a king should rule, and when what do you say, so sense gratificatory tips are given, people will just go based on that. So such citizens and such kingdoms will just be always disturbed. So in previous purpose I was reading, Prabhupada states that Prabhupada is expressing his what do you say, surprise that how can a kingdom be happy without being God conscious. And unfortunately the modern society is trying to be happy without being God conscious. We see the paradigm here shift. Devotees feel that how can be human society happy without God consciousness, and modern people with very poor fund of knowledge, they think that we will be happy and by being unconscious, by being not God conscious. So such, that is the fight of devotees and the modern people. So by being God conscious, what happens is that we try to give necessities to all kinds of people. So just like here, earth gives necessities, and at the same time earth also gives gold mines. But gold mines, it does not give to everyone and everyone, right? Wherever you dig, you will not get gold mines. So similarly, a king should know whom to reward. Necessities of food, clothing, shelter should be given to everyone. Many years back, even food was distributed freely. So that is, what do you say, if you want to judge whether a king is good or not, you can judge whether he is giving necessities to everyone freely or not. So food, water and basic necessities of life were completely free of cost. So in the modern times we go now, even for drinking water we are charged. Not just charged overly. So this is not a good governmental understanding. In many, even before independence, if somebody would have been hungry, any simple place he used to go, he would have been given food without any cost. Whereas now, sometimes people are starving for the want of food and struggling very hard. So these are the parameters by which we can judge whether a king is good or not. A person should be fearful of doing any irreligious activity. That is a sign of a good king. Whereas we see in the Kali Yuga, any person does irreligious activity and very proudly also he boasts that I am an irreligious person, and he just goes away without any being punished. So Kali Yuga is a very difficult situation. The kings are not there. There are no good brahmanas to guide such kings also. And hardly anybody is interested in welfare. Actually, in one of the Puranas, it is described that these governmental people who are supposed to give protection to the citizen, they themselves are harassing citizens. So, like generally, how many of the people who are very rich, they will be happy when an income tax officer comes and meets him. Right? Why? Because the income tax officer himself will know how to catch him. And he will know that how much dishonest money I have. So now what happens, in the fight of these people, they employ another person who will come and take money from the tax officer also. They take money from him also. He will say that adjust my income statement in such a way that I don't have to pay taxes. So there are various ways. If somebody knows who is a chartered accountant, he knows that if you earn so much income, you want to show something else. How to do various miscalculations. So all that is happening in this Kali Yuga because of dishonest kings, or kings not having good training, not having good knowledge of the scriptures, not understanding what is the role of a king, how much tolerant he should be, how much rewarding he should be, and how he should provide necessities to all the citizens. So these all are from Bhagavatam. When we try to learn, Bhagavatam just does not speak about pure devotional service. Bhagavatam speaks about how a person should be happy within this material world also. Unfortunately, people are not giving not giving their heart to the teachings of Bhagavatam. When the Bhagavatam teachings, Bhagavatam examples like King Prithu, King Ambarish Maharaj, kings like Lord Ramachandra, kings like Pandavas, when they rule the citizens, when they rule the country, all these unwanted things of poverty, scarcity of food, these all things don't exist. So much so that there will be no natural calamities also. It is described that in the kingdom of Lord Ramachandra, citizens never used to die also if they don't want. So much was the control over, so much was the control over natural things. There will be no untimely rains. There will be no drought, no excessive heat, no excessive cold when kingdoms are ruled in a dharmic way. So now, just having said that Mother Earth is very tolerant, one should not take it for granted. Because when Mother Earth becomes intolerant, she gives an earthquake, a little bit of jerk. We know what kind of calamities can occur. So one should be careful in understanding the teachings of Bhagavatam. Just because somebody is tolerant, we cannot just take it for granted. So the king is also like that. He tolerates, but when he wants to punish, he will punish. Like Krishna told that I will tolerate 100 offenses of Shishupal. So he was tolerant. But when he went beyond it, he did not just punish him saying that I will imprison you. He just finished him off. So all these teachings of Bhagavatam gives us eyes to see the current modern scenario and how we should live life as per the Vedic way to make our life successful and at the same time become Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead. So this is what we can learn from the episode of King Prithu. Although these professional reciters are reciting and glorifying the king, and King Prithu is little bit hesitant in accepting these prayers, but at the same time these professional reciters are setting their expectations, setting their standards of how a king should be. So thank you all very much. If anybody has any questions or comments, you can please do so. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Detailing given the matter, that is Srimad Bhagavatam being suggested and emphasized by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for this Kali Yuga, and in which ways it is being supportive to living style of the human society towards the Lord, back to Godhead. And here we can understand some point which been clearly given. Not only Bhagavata Dharma, that is Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam provides, it can give answers to present situations in this godless educated society. So that in propagation, these points also can be presented for preachers and sellers
definitely.
of books.
Definitely.
And
Whenever we meet people who are having of this caliber of some kingly position, we should tell them that we'll be very happy if you rule the citizens according to these standards. When Srila Prabhupada tried to meet at that time Prime Minister of India, Prabhupada went with a few tips for the Prime Minister as to how she should rule. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.